10 sinister last words that haunt me, revealed by a hospice nurse with chilling secrets. The moon hung low over the quiet streets of that sun-baked Pennsylvania suburb, casting long shadows behind every white picket fence, every neatly trimmed hedgerow. Inside the hospice, however, the air was thick with an unsettling tension, as if the walls themselves were listening. Every click of the clock echoed like a warning, whispering secrets of days past. I cradled an old journal left behind by a former patient, feeling that dread creep into my bones. "Trust no one," it had said, the chilling last words of a once lively soul, now shrouded in darkness. But the warning was just one of many entries that struck fear deep into my heart. Each page I turned unfolded terrifying confessions of betrayal, lost love, and buried secrets. A cold shiver danced down my spine as I read about the dark figure lurking just outside, watching from the shadows. I had seen it too, peeking through the window glass, the faceless silhouette that froze my blood, turning my sanctuary into a prison. The first name in the journal lingered like a ghost in my mind. A patient's last breath, so pure, yet harboring horrors that slowly seeped into the fabric of this sleepy town. When I shared these terrifying accounts with families, confusion morphed into disbelief, some lashing out, anger boiling beneath their surface. "This community doesn't harbor monsters," they would claim, shaking their heads, turning away as if ignorance could suppress the truth. But I felt it, an unyielding weight bearing down, constricting my chest. The night shifts were growing more oppressive, and I found myself glancing over my shoulder, brushing off the strain I couldn't articulate. The familiar sounds of nurses whispering turned into ghostly echoes, urging me to remember what lay beneath the calm surface of this place. One chilling evening, while the hospice dimmed in a sea of shadows, a frantic knock shattered my quiet. It was the family of my last patient, faces pale and frantic. "The shadow!" they cried, desperation in their voices. "It's watching from the window." They clutched tightly onto my arm, wild eyes scanning the darkness. I wanted to reassure them, to say it was just their minds playing tricks. But their fear ignited my own, and panic surged through me. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with each passing moment. As I drew closer to the truth lingering in the journal, a pattern emerged, a horrifying tapestry weaved from the final words of my patients. They began to align, chilling connections taking form as shadows whispered of the authority figure I once respected, a man cloaked in the community's trust but intertwined with unspeakable horrors. Heart racing, I stumbled upon an entry that named my family, connecting them to a tragic chapter buried in town history. My pulse quickened, realization crashing down like a wave. The horror I sought to unveil may lead straight back to my doorstep. As I closed the journal, dread wrapped around my throat, and I felt it again, the unmistakable weight of unseen eyes, suffocating, relentless. How long had it been watching? And why? My pulse pounded in my ears, each beat echoing the urgent question, can I trust even myself in a place teeming with secrets? Would I be the next victim of a story that was already spiraling out of control? I could almost hear the whispers growing louder, beckoning me towards an uncertain fate as darkness loomed, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The clock struck midnight, its chime slicing through the stillness like a knife. The air turned dense, a weight pressing down as if even the shadows were gathering for a council of dread. I gripped the journal tightly, its pages like a throbbing heart, pulsing with the terror of those who came before me. My hands trembled, a cold sweat coating my skin as I glanced around the dimly lit room, every corner teeming with shadows that felt too alive. When the soft creak of the floorboards behind me sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I spun around, breath hitching in my throat. But there was nothing there, just the empty hallway stretching beyond the doorway, dark and empty, yet somehow full of unseen watchers. I forced myself to breathe, the words from the journal echoing in my mind. Trust no one. Had that warning ever been more relevant, each tick of the clock sent chills down my spine. I closed my eyes, willing the dread to recede. "It's just your mind," I whispered to myself. "Just shadows." But the shadows had eyes. Suddenly, the door creaked open just a fraction, enough for me to glimpse a pair of light-reflecting eyes staring from the dark. My heart dropped into my stomach, panic threatening to overtake me. I was rooted in place, frozen between the urge to run and the sick curiosity that held me captive. "Who is there?" I called out, my voice quavering like a leaf in the wind, already knowing the answer. No response. Just silence, and then a whisper, barely a sound at all. "Help me." The plea wrapped around my heart like a vice. I hesitated, stepping toward the door, drawn by some invisible thread. "Hello? Is someone out there?" The hallway was now a chasm between us, filled with the weight of fear and silent dread. Then, without warning, the shadow moved, swelling and twisting like smoke caught in a gust of wind. My stomach dropped, my instincts screamed at me to flee. "I need to get help," I gasped, but the door slammed shut, splintering my thoughts into 1,000 shards of panic. That I turned to the journal, desperate to find a clue, a way out of this nightmare. As I flipped through the pages frantically, one entry caught my eye. It told of a last confession, a warning regarding a haunting, a curse said to follow the families of those who betrayed the community's trust. The shadow might not be a mere specter, but something born from the very secrets I was unearthing. "Family," I breathed. "My family." The implication twisted my insides. Suddenly my own blood felt like a noose tightening around my neck. I needed to expose the truth before it consumed me. But the urgency clawed at me. Had they seen me slip away? Did they know what I was searching for? Just then, the whispers grew louder, merging into one chilling chorus, spitting out the words that froze my heart. "You can't escape, you're already one of us." Panic surged, forming a tight knot in my chest. I staggered back, unable to comprehend the sinister truth. The very shadows that haunted me might be pulling me into their fold, dragging me along the historic threads of betrayal woven deep into my lineage. Each gasp for air felt like a betrayal, each heartbeat an echo of the cursed legacies behind me. That I took a step back. Would I fight the dark? Or embrace it? The shadows shifted again, an unfurling darkness beckoning from behind the door. I could either dive deeper into the unknown or break free before it was too late. As I stood at the precipice, questions roared in my mind. Could I trust what I felt? Was the truth worth the risk? Choosing between surrender and defiance in a battle against the encroaching darkness. But what I didn't know was that my decision would shape not only my life but also the twisted fate of my family and this town. I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was alive, watching my every move. Defensive instincts flared, urging me to bolt for the door. But the past held me in its fetid grip, the curse whispering promises in my ear. There was no escaping it. I could feel its cold fingers wrapping around my heart. "Run!" A voice screamed inside my head as the shadows flickered at the corners of my vision. I stumbled back, crashing into the writing desk, sending a flurry of pens clattering to the floor. The noise echoed like a gunshot in the silence, reverberating through the suffocating air. And there it was again, a rustle from the hallway, and then sharp, deliberate footsteps. My pulse quickened as I pressed my back against the wall, breath hitching as I peered into the murky corridor. "This is a nightmare, it has to be," I muttered, trying to convince myself. Then the whispering began again. "Join us," it hissed, like a cold wind slicing through the room. I shook my head, dismissing the voice. I wasn't one of them. But my family's sins were woven into the fabric of this house. The history coiled around my neck, suffocating me slowly. That I flipped through the journal again, desperate for some shred of hope or clarity. The entries began to blend, a grotesque tapestry of broken oaths and mournful reckonings. Then, one line snagged my attention: "They come for you when you least expect it." What does that even mean? I whispered, the words tasting like ash on my tongue. The footsteps paused outside, the crunch of gravel biting into my senses. I took a trembling breath, every muscle screamed at me to move, to scream, to do something, but what? The chilling dread settled deeper as an icy hand brushed against my arm. I spun around, heart racing, but found only the stillness of the room behind me. "They're playing games," I muttered, trying to rally my thoughts. "This is all a trick." Suddenly, a deafening crash reverberated from the hallway as if something had slammed against the door. The sound ricocheted through the air, making the walls shudder and breathe, provoking the shadows to twist and lurch. "Get out!" I shouted, voice cracking as the layers of silence collapsed around me. I lunged for the hallway door, but icy fingers of darkness crawled up my legs, pulling me down with ghastly strength. "I want to become you," I yelled, kicking at the shadows, but they only tightened their hold, hissing in dark laughter. Just as despair threatened to swallow me whole, a blinding spark lit the room. A match struck against the insipid black, the flickering flame revealed the truth. The lurking shadows were not forms, but faces distorted with rage and sorrow. Eyes peering back at me, each one a thread in the web of betrayal woven through my lineage. Their mouths moved in agonized unison, chanting in a twisted chorus, "Betrayal, betrayal, betrayal, I will uncover your secrets." I screamed back, though doubt clawed at my mind. For the first time, doubt weighed heavier than fear. And in that moment, a new whisper broke through, wrapping around me like a shroud, "You have no choice." The rush of icy air cut through me as I felt the shadows slide back, retreating towards the door. But their hunger lingered like a lover spurned, waiting for a chance to strike once more. I hesitated, realizing I could either step into the unknown or run blindly into the dark corridors of my family's past, but what I didn't realize was the door wasn't my only way out. The heartbeat of the house pulsed with secrets, and the very walls were more than refuge, they were a prison. As I turned to face the encroaching night, the journal slipped from my hands, fluttering open on the floor. A mysterious entry caught my eye, details about an artifact buried beneath the house that could either sever the ties that bound me or seal my fate forever. And in the stillness, the remnants of the shadows whispered, "Find it or be lost." I took a shaky breath, trying to grasp the weight of what loomed before me. The flickering light from the match threw shapes against the walls, twisting familiar outlines into grotesque caricatures of despair. Each pulse of the flame revealed new faces in the shadows, mouths still chanting that haunting refrain. My heart pounded against my ribs, urging me to flee. "Find it or be lost," echoed in my mind, a sinister promise lurking in the corners of my thoughts. What was this artifact? What did it mean to truly sever these ties? The pages of the journal crinkled beneath my fingertips, demanding my attention, the words of my ancestors threatening to spill their darkest secrets. That I dropped to my knees, sifting through the pages, scanning their chaotic script. Each word pulled me deeper into the swirling murk of my family's history. Betrayal, betrayal. A cry for recognition or a warning? I couldn't tell anymore. The shadows crept closer. Agitated whispers curled around me like smoke. I knew I had to respond, to fight back against the encroaching dread pressing into my chest like a vice. I was caught between this nightmarish past and an uncertain future. Then, I noticed it, a tiny, cramped sketch reminding me of a modest trapdoor hidden within the living room floorboards. My breath quickened. Memories surged. I remembered being a child, playing hide and seek. My father had warned me never to touch that part of the floor, as if it were a wound in the house's fabric. "Whatever you do, don't disturb it," he had said. Maybe he'd known more than he let on. The vibrations of his protection turned into an oppressive weight now, bearing down on me with dread. That I leapt back to my feet and glanced towards the door. The pull of the shadows and something more primal urged me to flee. But the draw of the unknown was stronger. To escape the house's grip, I had to find that door. With shaky breaths, I stepped away from the desk, the floorboards creaking beneath my weight. Each sound mirrored my racing heartbeat. I peered into the hallway, hesitant but determined. Was the entity marking its territory? Yes, it watched, enthralled with my every move. "Find it," the darkness taunted, voices colliding, shifting like whispers between worlds. I turned and dashed toward the room where childhood memories lay shackled beneath layers of dread. My fingers rattled against the edges of the floorboards as I knelt beside the marked spot, breath hitching with each second. The shadows lingered, growing thicker around me, their looming presence assertive and hungry. I grasped a loose board and wrestled with it. The wood protested, resisting as if it held a secret so dark that it both ached to be freed and terrified to escape. My heart raced, tempo hammering in my ears as I managed to pry it loose. The scent of mildew and something worse wafted up from the gap below. I shuddered, glancing back, but in that fleeting moment, I felt the weight of airy fingernails against my skin. "Find it or be lost," they hissed again, closer, more insistent. I swallowed the dread, lowering myself further into the opening. I reached down into the darkness, fingers brushing against cool stone. Something was there, cold and foreboding, and it pulsed beneath my fingertips. What lay deep within the shadows? Was it the key to breaking free or a price I was unwilling to pay? The gloom thickened, swirling in a dance of malevolence and temptation. The shadows swirled impatiently, their whispers rising to a cacophony, driving me to the edge of insanity. "Do you dare?" I drew in a breath, my mind racing, grappling with the reality that loomed within grasp, the chilling realization of my decision etched in the air like a fog. Before I could second-guess myself, I pulled whatever it was toward the light. Suddenly, a surge of frigid air slammed against me, the darkness letting out a guttural roar as it receded. In that haunting moment, I sensed more than just shadows around me. A presence, ancient and intimidating, had awakened. What sinister knowledge would I uncover next? The chill wrapped around me like a shroud, gripping tighter as I clawed my way back from the depths of that suffocating space. My fingers trembled as I clutched the object I had unearthed, smooth, cold, and undeniably wrong. Clenching my teeth against the unease gnawing at me, I drew it into the flickering light that it was a small stone, dark as night, but not entirely devoid of features. Strange veins in its surface glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat of its own. As each beat resonated, the shadows seemed to twitch and sway, vibrating with malevolent energy. An intense dread bubbled in my gut. I willed myself to breathe, willing the panic away. "Find it or be lost," the words echoed menacingly in my ears. The rhythmic pulsing of the stone began to synchronize with my racing heart, and dread settled in deeper. I had unearthed something powerful, not just a relic but possibly the key to everything my family had tried to hide. That I stumbled back, weighed down by the stone's ominous presence. The walls squirmed under the flickering light, grotesque forms twisted, a gallery of sorrow and anguish molded from despair. The whispers crescendoed, growing into a crazed clamor, a riot of voices demanding recognition, demanding acknowledgement. "What do you want from me?" I gasped into the clamor, my voice barely hanging on. The shadows recoiled, pulling back slightly as if considering my plea. Moments stretched, and I felt suspended in an eerie, poised silence. Then, out of the stillness, a voice pierced through a low, chilling cadence, distinct from the whispers. "Release us or become one with us." The meaning washed over me like ice water, spiraling panic gnawing at my sanity. I realized this wasn't just about uncovering family secrets, it was an invitation, beckoning me deeper into the abyss. My instincts screamed for me to drop the stone, cast it away, but the curiosity of what lay within its dark grip was overwhelming. The shadows thickened around me, almost palpable, their pressure closing in like a noose. "Find it," they insisted. "You must sever the ties." I absorbed their words, feeling the weight of generations pressing down. This was what my family had fought to keep buried. Secret after secret spilled out, a torrent of betrayal and anguish I wasn't prepared for. The air crackled with energy, and with it came visions, fragments of the past, images of my ancestors flooded my mind, desperate faces twisted in torment, trapped in a cycle of despair. A little girl with hollow eyes, a man screaming in agony, a shadowed figure shrouded in grief. Their fates were intertwined with the stone, bound by a past I was now part of. "No!" I screamed, a mix of rebellion and fear flooding me anew. "I will not join you." Suddenly, the grip of the shadows hissed louder, a cacophony of anger. "Find it! Save us!" They surged toward me, their presence boiling with rage, desperate and insistent. The stone pulsed violently in my hand, an ominous warning, a tether that threatened to pull me down. That I had to decide. Hold on to the stone and face whatever legacy it represented, or cast it back into the void and face the wrath of those who lingered. I realized my choices were limited, and time was slipping through my fingers. Just then, a breath of icy air washed over me, scattering the whispers momentarily. I saw a fleeting image, a doorway flickering behind me, light spilling through. Was it the way out? Or escape merely a mirage? Find it or be lost, they warned again, and I felt the weight of their fate closing in. I glanced between the stone and that beckoning door, pulse quickening with the uncertainty of choice. Which path would lead me to freedom, and at what cost? I took a step forward, teetering on the precipice of dark discovery. But then, shadows shifted, swirling like a tempest, consuming me whole. Would I be brave enough to uncover the truth that beckoned from beyond? The swirling shadows devoured my vision, darkness wrapping around me with a ferocity that stole my breath. I felt the stone vibrate in my hand, pulsing in time with the chaos surrounding me. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage as I was thrust into the depths of despair, uncertain and terrified. Sever the ties, the voices laced through the shadows, their urgency palpable. They spiraled around me, drowning out reason. With every pulse of the stone, I could feel something stir, something ancient, something forgotten. My body ached with fear, urging me to flee, but my mind wrestled with the allure of answers hidden beneath that dreadful surface. As I edged closer to the flickering light of the doorway, it flickered seductively, a beacon amid the darkness. I could almost feel its warmth caressing my skin, promising safety. But the shadows screeched, their cries morphing into a monstrous chorus. You cannot leave. Not yet. The truth must be uncovered. I hesitated. The sweet call of escape tangled with the incessant demands of the shadows. I was trapped in a labyrinth of choice, each path lined with consequences. I remembered the warning, find it or be lost. With a sudden surge of defiance, I raised the stone to my heart, its strange pulse synchronizing with my fears. What does this mean? I shouted into the cacophony, desperately seeking an answer amid the chaos. The shadows recoiled, a muted silence enveloping me, drawing back momentarily as if considering my plea. Then the darkness surged forward, and I was blinded momentarily by flashes of screams, blood, and loss. Images of my family, bound by pain, replayed in my mind like an endless loop, a mother's cry of despair, a father's obsession with the unknown, a child's innocent laughter stolen by shadows. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed, forcing a cry to escape my throat. What do you want from me? Moments bled into eternity, the whispering shadows folding around me like a shroud. It was cold, so cold, and every fiber of my being longed for warmth and understanding, yet I was only met with the pulsating fear resonating from the stone. The faint glow began to sputter, flickering between vibrant pulses and dim despair. Open the door to the truth, the voice returned, smoother now, lacing through the air with sinister invitation. Or join us in our anguish. What you seek is right before you, but only if you dare. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flee. But outwardly, nothing came, just the hollow echo of my thoughts, circling like frightened prey. I pressed a trembling hand against the stone, feeling tendrils of its energy worming through the cracks in my defenses. Join us, they urged, their voices intertwining as a twisted melody, blending sorrow with promise, a symphony begging acceptance. I closed my eyes, consumed by the oppressive weight of choice. Suddenly, a flash of cold realization crashed over me. If I release this, will I be free? Or will I lose everything? The stone surged violently, and in that moment, clarity struck. The shadows thrashed, a tempest raged, their cries morphing into furious howls. As if sensing my intention, the plastered walls around me trembled, beginning to crack under the collective weight of desperate souls. I had seconds, maybe less. I looked towards the flickering light, my escape, then, the world tilted. The stone slipped from my grip, falling towards the ground. It struck the floor with a resounding crack that reverberated through the shadows. Time slowed as I lunged for it, straining to grasp it before it shattered. But my fingertips brushed against the dark surface just as an explosion of anger erupted around me. "Fool! You cannot escape!" they screamed, the shadows rushing forward, fangs bared and eyes glowing with malevolence. And just as the darkness enveloped me once more, I heard a final chilling whisper, a name, my name, twisted into a promise. "Madeline, your reckoning has only begun." With a heart-stopping thud, my world went black. What awaited me now in the void? Would I emerge alive, or trapped forever in an endless cycle of despair? Madeline's eyes fluttered open, panic surging through her veins. The world around her had transformed, the shadows receding but not vanishing completely. Wisps of darkness lingered in the corners, curling like smoke. The light that had promised safety now felt harsher, an eerie glow illuminating the haunting space. She was in an old room, bare except for the crumbling walls and a single candle flickering on a table that threatened to collapse under the weight of memory. The stone lay at her feet, pulsing weakly, still connected to the anguished voices that echoed within her mind. A shiver crept up her spine. She was not free. As she rose unsteadily, the floorboards creaked beneath her, an unsettling reminder of another life once lived here. Memories washed over her, a hasty dinner, laughter, family gathered around. But each vivid image was tinged with dread. She reached down slowly for the stone, picking it up, its energy coursing through her like a lifeline, as much a curse as a blessing. The silence was deafening. Too quiet. She felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her, poised for the moment she would falter. The whispers, once chaotic, now swirled with intent, a sinister melody urging her to embrace the darkness. "Sever the ties," a voice hissed from behind her. She spun around, heart hammering, but the room remained empty. Shadows coalesced, flickering with sinister intent, forming shapes that resembled forgotten souls, their faces contorted in agony. "What do you want from me?" Her voice trembled, raw and desperate. "Your truth is here." The voice vibrated through the room, echoing off the walls and seeping into her bones. "Join us. Do not resist." Madeline pressed the stone against her chest, as if to shield herself. The air grew thicker, constricting her thoughts, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. Each breath felt labored, each thought weighed down by the suffocating grasp of despair. "I can't," she whispered, her breath hitching. "I refuse." A roar erupted, violent and furious. The shadows lunged, weaving through the air, eager to claim her. "You cannot defy what you are. You belong with us." She stumbled backward, her heart racing. Running was futile, the darkness was everywhere, wrapping around her like chains. Gripping the stone tighter, she closed her eyes, trying to block out the insistent noise. In that moment of silence, a memory surged forth, her mother's voice, soothing yet heavy with the weight of loss. "Facing the truth is the only way to break free." Madeline opened her eyes. Determination ignited within her. "If I must face the truth, then I will." She took a step forward, eyes darting toward the dark shapes forming before her. The pulsing stone guided her, a familiar rhythm anchoring her mind. "Show me," she declared, her voice steady, but dread constricted her throat. The shadows paused, their chaotic dance faltering, silent for the first time. With a glowing promise, the stone surged, brightening the room for an instant. Then shadows writhed violently as if woken from slumber. "No. You cannot." Their furious cries struck her like icy daggers. Madeline clenched her jaw, the light from the stone surrounding her like armor. "I will unveil the truth." Just as the darkness lunged, she focused on the stone, willing it to connect with the truth buried deep inside her, a truth she had unknowingly buried alongside her family's pain. A deafening silence followed, the shadows waiting, poised to either consume or retreat. What secrets would emerge? What horrors lured beneath her skin, hidden in the folds of their agony? The ground trembled beneath her, crackling with raw energy. The room began to dissolve, the boundaries blurring. What awaited her in the revelation? In the shifting chaos, an overwhelming presence loomed, a specter cloaked in darkness, its voice a chilling echo of familiarity. "Welcome back, Madeline. You have much to answer for." A sudden realization hit her. The shadows were no longer just echoes of the past, they held fragments of her pieces she had long since forgotten. Would she face the reckoning alone, or surrender to the shadows calling her home? Each heartbeat felt louder than the last, the choice hauntingly clear but terrifying. What lay behind the veil would either redeem her or drag her into the abyss forever. Madeline felt the words wrap around her like a tight coil, squeezing the breath from her lungs. As the presence stepped closer, the darkness unfurled into menacing shapes, vibrating with an energy that threatened to swallow her whole. Her heartbeat echoed like a drum, drowning out the whispers of anguished souls swarming just outside her awareness. "Much to answer for," the specter repeated, its voice dripping with a chilling familiarity that made her skin crawl. She felt her resolve falter for a second, doubt creeping in as memories flickered like a broken film reel, those she had lost, their faces twisting in pain and longing. The room warped, fading into an undefined void, twisting her reality. "Stop!" she screamed, the sound reverberating off the walls of her mind more than the room. "Please. I need to know." The shadows hesitated, as if contemplating her plea. They curled inwards, forming a chaotic mass that shimmered with a dark light. For a moment, all she felt was her own soul, desperately seeking a way out of the relentless dark. Silence blanketed the air, heavy and cold. Then, without warning, a memory surged forth, a glimpse of her mother standing in that very room, her hands trembling as she clutched a crucifix. "Never forget your light, Madeline," her mother whispered, shadows dancing around her like a mournful symphony. "It's the only way." Suddenly, the specter screeched, an unholy sound that shattered the silence. What light? It died with them. It lunged forward, dark tendrils reaching for Madeline, as if trying to claim her very essence. Madeline staggered back, heart racing. "No. I want to let you take me." In that moment, she tightened her grip around the stone, feeling its warmth pierce through the encroaching night. She was terrified yet emboldened by a realization: she had a choice. "Remember," she shouted, voice trembling with newfound power. "I remember you all." The air crackled with anticipation as she focused on the stone's pulsing light, channeling it like a beacon piercing through the fog of her fears. Every face, every voice she had buried surged forth, flooding her with their sorrow and rage. Ghostly faces gathered around her, drawn by her conviction. With each heartbeat, each glimmer of memory, she felt the shadows recoil. They screamed in anger, thrashing violently as if battling against a fierce tide. "You belong to us, Madeline. You cannot escape your fate." But she stood her ground. "No. I will not be your puppet. I choose to fight." The stone flared, filling the room with radiant luminescence. The shadows writhed in agony, their natural instinct to feed recoiling from the blinding light. Madeline could see them now, their forms shifting from desperate spirits to haunting faces, lips contorting into silent screams. In the cleft of that chaos, an overwhelming weight bore down on her, a paradox of dread and hope. "What do you crave?" she called into the growing thunder. "Do you seek forgiveness, or vengeance?" The shadows paused, caught in a moment of stillness, like predators considering their prey. "Both." They howled in unison, their voices merging into a cacophony of anguish. "Release us. We only want peace." "Then help me," Madeline pleaded, her eyes darting around the flickering forms. "Guide me to the truth that lies buried beneath our pain." The room trembled in response, a collective shudder as whirling shadows dipped and weaved, coalescing around her once more. In that terrifying embrace, they began to unveil what lay beneath, memories buried deep but clawing for the light. Suddenly, vivid images slammed into her consciousness, faces of her family, their last moments entwined in tragedy, secrets hidden in whispers echoing through time. The realization crashed over her, a wave of horror mixed with understanding. The truth was darker than she'd imagined, contaminating everything she thought she knew. Madeline the spectre whispered again, softer now, the harsh edges of anger fading slightly. You must confront what you dread most, what your family kept from you. The darkness loomed, a tempest of uncertainty, swirling around her as the shadow's moans intensified. She felt the imminent danger of her own buried sins rising to the surface. What would she discover there? With a deep breath, she held the stone high. Show me. She shouted defiantly, fear and determination surging together within her. As the shadows began to shift, their true form revealing secrets long hidden, the ground beneath her cracked, and an unbearable tension hung in the air. What monstrous truths awaited her? Would she have the strength to survive the revelation? And more importantly, what if facing the truth unleashed a far greater terror than she could ever have foreseen? The shadows writhed and twisted, unleashing a torrent of memories that exploded in front of Madeline's eyes like fireworks of darkness. She felt like a marionette caught in their tangled strings, pulled this way and that, as each image clamored for her attention, demanding to be understood. Her mother's voice echoed faintly, like a whisper through layers of brittle fog, you must look, only then will you find peace. But peace felt impossibly far away, buried beneath a mountain of dread. Images flickered before her, a forgotten birthday party, laughter freezing mid-air, a violent storm tossing a small boat in raging waters, a family gathering that had spiraled into chaos. Shouts twisted into screams, splashes of vivid colors dashed against the gloom, each one layered with grief, guilt, and mystery. Then the shadows shifted like shifting sand, zeroing in on one particularly potent moment, a flash of her father's face, twisted in an agony that tore at her heart. Forgive me, he mouthed silently, but the words seemed to choke in the air. What had he done? No, she gasped, stepping back. What are you trying to show me? The air grew heavy, laden with sorrow and regret, wrapping around her throat like the tightening coils of a snake. What did he do? She begged, but her voice barely broke the oppressive weight of despair. Everything and nothing, the spectre hissed, its presence growing more pronounced. The shadows flared brighter, distorting the walls while the memories morphed into a whirl of faces she both longed and feared to see. Do you want the truth? Or will you take the easy path, ignorance wrapped in shame? Madeline's heart raced. No. I want the truth. The shadows recoiled, hesitating as if testing her resolve. Then they plummeted into chaos, each tendril of darkness lunging forward as if wanting to invade her soul. The cacophony of anguished cries surrounded her, drowning her thoughts in despair. Stop! She yelled, clutching the stone tightly. Its warmth pulsed against her palm, a steady rhythm igniting her courage. Stop torturing me. Show me the truth. At that command, the shadows froze, then drew back abruptly. They twisted into a funnel, leading her gaze to a swirling vortex. There, at its center, she saw a scene play out like a dying ember. Her father, hunched over, elbows resting on a table, tears streaking down his face as he spoke into a flickering screen. Words fell like ash around him, a desperate conversation that hovered in the air, heavy with guilt. I had no choice, his voice cracked. It was for your own good. I'm sorry, my love. Madeline's stomach twisted, ice sinking into her veins. What had he done? Had he betrayed them? Confront what you dread, echoed her mother's voice with a haunting clarity. No. Madeline cried, realizing they were about to reveal something more sinister, an unthinkable truth that could tear apart her already fragile heart. The vortex expanded its depths, revealing dark corners of her father's world entwined with hers. The shadows rumbled with anticipation, feeding off her fear, twisting the words he spoke into a grotesque dance of foreboding. Madeline, the truth lies in the choice he made. Clenching her jaw, she stepped closer to the swirling mass. It felt like looking into the mouth of a great beast poised to swallow her whole. What choice? She breathed, tears flowing part from terror, part from the weight of what was being uncovered. Suddenly, a wave of energy crashed into her, sending her sprawling as images flicked faster, almost too rapid to comprehend. Everything was colliding, joy silhouettes against darkness. And then a name surfaced, jagged against the other horrors. A name that made her heart stop in its thrumming. Sarah. Before she could collect her thoughts, the shadows surged and changed, morphing into a single figure, that of a woman's silhouette, eyes void of anything solid, more terrifying than death itself. Find her, it whispered, shadows filtering into a laugh of madness, before she finds you. Madeline blinked, her heart hammering. Who was Sarah? What link did she have to the monster evolving within her memories? The answers clawed at her mind, desperate to escape, mingling with a dread that threatened to upend her very sanity. As the shadow loom tightened its grip, she realized, this could lead to her salvation or her downfall. Would the truth liberate her, or would it bind her forever in its relentless grip? And as the shadows pulsed around her, she fought against the rising tide of fear. She had to know more before it consumed her utterly. Drawing a breath, she steadied herself. Show me. I won't turn away again. But just as the shadows began to reform, a chilling whisper filled the air. Everything comes at a cost, Madeline. What are you willing to sacrifice? In that singular moment, she understood, the stakes had never been higher. Would she pay the price for her family's horror? Would embracing her past lead to her freedom? The question hung in the darkness, as the shadows coiled tighter, preparing her for the terrifying truth that lay just beyond reach. Madeline's heart pounded in her chest as she faced the swirling shadows, every instinct urging her to retreat. The spectre's looming presence seemed to absorb the very light around her, creating a vortex of despair that threatened to engulf her whole. What are you willing to sacrifice? The voice echoed like a distant thunderclap, chilling and haunting. The shadows thrummed with dark energy, shadows alive with hungry eyes and desperate mouths. I don't know. She yelled back, fear gnawing at her resolve. What do you want from me? Find Sarah, save us, the shadows hissed, tightening their grip. Each word felt like a plea laced with wrath. They coiled around her, testing her strength like a predator checks its prey. But she stood tall, clenching the pulsing stone tighter. She needed answers, not just for the spirits trapped within these walls, but for herself. What had her father done? Whom had he betrayed? The wrenching desire for truth pushed her forward, filling her veins with heat as her grip tightened around the artifact. Show me Sarah. She commanded, defiance rising like a phoenix. Show me what I need to know. The shadows recoiled, impressed or perhaps fearful of her newfound resolve. They began to swirl faster, forming a murky portal filled with chaotic images and sounds, a cacophony of voices echoing from deep within their folds. In an instant, visions erupted before her eyes. She was pulled into a memory that was her own. A dim room filled with laughter, a birthday party. Yes. Children ran in circles, their joy radiating from youthful innocence. But then it changed, transitioning into chaos, crescendoing into screams. The thrill shattered into fragments of pain as a dark storm loomed overhead, lightning casting cruel blots of shadow that danced in the brightness. Help me, echoed a soft, pleading voice, shrill and piercing through the confusion. Find me, Madeline. The name struck her with an unmistakable recognition. Sarah. An urgency unfurled within Madeline. She was here. Somewhere in this swirling mess. Where are you? Madeline screamed into the void. Time warped around her, heavy and suffocating, yet the whispers of the lost souls urged her onwards. The tension spiraled, the shadows clasping tighter at her body. Tell me. Find the door, they screeched, before the shadows swallow you whole. Frantic, Madeline focused her willpower, attempting to push through the encroaching dread. Her surroundings shifted again. She saw a figure, a young girl, huddled amidst debris, lost and alone. Sarah. Madeline gasped, empathy flooding her heart. Watching the little one cry out for help felt like a knife twisting in her gut. I'm coming. Just hold on. But the shadows lurched at her, screeching with fury as if Madeline's determination threatened their grasp on the darkness. You cannot reach her. They thundered, forbidding her to move forward. No. I will not let you take her. Madeline screamed with all her might. The stone pulsed powerfully against her chest, a tempest of light kindling in her fingertips. She focused her energy, channeling a surge of warmth into the stone, almost like a plea to the shadows to let her through. In a moment of divine clarity, the shadows wavered, rippling like a disturbed pond. Go then, but beware, they howled, retreating slightly, allowing a narrow corridor to open. Madeline dashed forward, every beat of her heart filling her with purpose. I will find you, Sarah. She yelled, propelled by raw determination. As she dove through the portal, visions and fears collided around her, images of her family intertwined with dark shadows. She was tearing through the darkness now, fueled by hope, leaving everything she had known behind. The corridor stretched endlessly, darkness fading into blurred visions of life. Then, like a lighthouse gleaming against the storm, she felt warmth hit her face. Suddenly, she broke through into light, falling onto solid ground. Around her, the world was vibrant and breathing, yet shadows fled back to grasp the corners, waiting like vipers in the grass. Madeline gasped, pulling herself up. Short breaths mixed with the cool air around her, her eyes darting across the space. And then she heard it again, the soft whispering of fear. Help me, Sarah. She shouted, desperation spilling from her lips as her heart raced ahead. Here. I'm here. Madeline turned and found her a child with tear-stained cheeks, trembling behind a curtain of shadows that refracted darkness into shimmering light. Sarah stood fearfully, yet defiant, ready to fight against the encroaching gloom. With an outstretched hand, Madeline stepped forward. I will save you, she breathed, her resolve unraveling the encasing shadows. As she reached out, the space around them rippled, the energies clashed, igniting her willpower. Together! She exclaimed, and the warmth of the stone surged, radiant and fierce. Together! Echoed Sarah, stepping forward bravely. With both their hands clasped, the shadows wailed in anguish, recoiling under the force of their combined light. The air crackled, a symphony of freedom roaring as light tore through the darkness, closing around them like a shield. Freedom! They shouted in unison, pulling the weight of history with them. In that moment, they felt a ripple, the chains binding their past unraveling at once, the memories released in one final outcry against the shadows. Madeline's heart soared, lifting and fleeing into the brilliant embrace of dawn. The darkness faded into the horizon, retreating into the recesses of unknown, as light broke across the sky, shattering the haunting bond forever. We did it. Madeline thought, adrenaline still racing through her veins as she gazed at Sarah, the relief cascading over them both. She felt raw, alive. And in the wake of chaos, hope flourished, rebirth blooming anew from the ashes of despair. With raised heads, they stood beneath the emerging sun, two souls intertwined against the remnants of grief that would now begin to heal. We'll uncover the truth together, she whispered, her heart fuller than it had ever been, and as they stepped into the awakening day, among the blessed rays of sunlight, a soft voice called from deep within. You have broken the curse, but shadows linger still. Together, you will expose them. Madeline nodded. For the first time, she felt ready to face whatever destiny awaited them. Their journey was only beginning, and in that bright warmth, a sense of belonging filled the void. Standing hand in hand, they embraced the light. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, your support is what powers us. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Let us hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends. Thank you for the chilling journey of discovery. Join us, and let us unravel more together.